Welcome, welcome to the crypto show. And we're here with Arko Ganguli, and he's of CoinShala. We're here for the weekly crypto update with him. And this week we've got a pretty obvious thing to talk about.
Small update, yeah.
Small update, yeah. So yesterday the RBI sent out a circular basically saying that banks, wallets, any form of payment method can't deal with cryptocurrency exchanges or cryptocurrency merchants or anything to do with cryptocurrencies. So as you may imagine, a few people are a little worried about this. So straight off the bat, have you read the regulation, like the actual notice?
I did.
So what does that actually mean? Is it as strict as it sounds?
Well, it's what it's actually saying is fundamentally. How will I put this? Yes.
Yes, it's bad. So I'll go home now.
Yeah. So no, it is kind of usual to do something like this. Yet it is unusual.
Okay.
Like it's in cases of we have seen these instances before in certain unregulated new technologies in financial spaces. When they came about, it caused a lot of upheaval in the economy, or even if it tries to, or it seems it can. The Reserve Bank has a very protectionist view towards it. It kind of stops the activity as it is, not directly. Because
Wait, so you're saying this has happened before with other technologies?
no, other forms of innovation in financial space. Like last year, it happened to peer-to-peer lending. Right? Peer-to-peer lending as a system came about like 3 to 4 years ago, where they created what happened was fundamentally when you're doing any form of a borrowing or lending activity, like a bank, like not as a bank but as a non-banking company.
Right.
You
So like a
needed
wallet or something.
Yeah, like an NBFC, not a wallet. Like fundamentally, I'm a small organization. I'm not a bank, but I'm carrying out some non-banking activities, which includes borrowing and lending.
Correct.
Right.
Okay.
It can be giving finance for housing or giving finance for some SME loan. So those required a license from the RBI.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
So what happened after that was some people came about, because of the advent of technology in the space, they came out with the platform-based lending mechanism, where I create a platform. I'm not directly engaged in the entire lending or borrowing process, but in my platform, people are coming together in the aggregator model. I'm actually doing it.
Okay.
So there was no license for that, and RBI realized that this is a major problem, because like a plethora of companies came about realizing
it becomes a lot of scams, right? A lot of people walk in.
Scams. The thing is, they don't need licenses from RBI anymore, and this is actually more transparent than NBFCs, right? So what RBI did, first came out with like, okay, what we do with this? We ban it. And then they realized the moment you ban something in India, it has to stand the test of the constitution. It has to talk about whether, so the banning, it's a very simple thing to do, right? You can ban something. You ban using an act. So you can come up with, if they wanted to ban bitcoins, banning of bitcoins act. And then some evangelist in the crypto space would have filed a case in the Supreme Court saying that
you can't do that. Yeah.
No, they could have filed a case and said, you know what, this particular law is violating my fundamental right to doing something, right? Okay. So they are smarter. The regulatory authority, what they did with peer-to-peer, did the same thing with crypto. They're like, okay, right now we don't understand what's going on. So I want to put a moratorium on all the activities happening here until further notice. So the banks came out, ultimately RBI came with its own peer-to-peer RBI license, and only if you have procured the license, you can actually do the aggregator job for peer-to-peer. I think they will come with their own license for actually running these exchanges.
Okay. No, but the funny thing is, they haven't actually banned cryptocurrencies or Bitcoin or anything. They've banned transacting with them through banks or through wallets, any digital method.
Correct.
Which is strange, because this goes back to the idea of, okay, how much are they infringing your rights as a citizen? That they're saying, okay, this is still legal, cryptocurrency is still legal. So if you walk into an exchange, and if the exchange accepts cash, then you can go and buy cryptocurrencies in cash, technically.
Yeah.
No one's going to do that for obvious reasons, but you can do that technically, because cryptocurrencies haven't been banned. It's just a method of buying.
RBI understands that, right? RBI understands that. But if you go to the cryptocurrency and buy something with cash, then the cryptocurrency exchange, by simple other regulations, right? There are anti-money laundering regulations in our country. They have to take disclosures from you where you actually got that cash from. And generally, if you have been paying attention to what's happening in this country the past 2 years, having a lot of cash actually doesn't help.
Helps not, or only puts a little bit of a suspicion on you. Okay, so let's break it down a little bit. What happens to the people who own cryptocurrency right now? So say I own 100 Ripple, and this is just passed, and I go, I don't want to throw away my Ripple now. It's going to be worth a lot in 2 years, 3 years. This is just a guess. It's not a thing. But I don't want to throw it away now. But how do I convert it back to fiat currency eventually down the line?
So eventually, now is an interesting question. I think because the nature of the thing that RBI has done, RBI, if you look at the specific circular, specifically talks about that. This is something that is the advent of virtual currencies is something that is has exploded in the ecosystem, financial ecosystem, and we are watching it closely. Right now, we are understanding many people are coming into this particular fold. So till we have figured out a particular mechanism to actually handle this particular kind of transactions, and we are noticing a lot of illegal and a lot of unwarranted transactions happening through this space. We are specifically telling anybody who has got any form of a license to actually carry out certain activity from the Reserve Bank to stop supporting such transactions, right? So two things here, right? First thing is they're not directly infringing about your rights. They are well within their powers to revoke any license for whatever reason they feel and fit, right? So and the banks more than willing to comply, right?
I mean, they've been banning their own personal accounts from dealing with crypto.
So here's the funny thing about India as a legal system, right? Legal system India, has because we are very recently went to a mixed economy model like since early 90s, and throughout most of the independent country, we have been predominantly less of a very capitalist outlook.
More of a planned economy,
so which is why our laws have evolved towards more protectionist versus the state as opposed to the private individual. So which is happening recently. If you look at the WhatsApp and the Facebook case, they actually brought about, does WhatsApp and Facebook carry out an essential public function? But it's a long way to go there, right? So the government realizes it. They don't directly take the gun. They put the rifle on the shoulder of the private organizations like the banks that actually carrying out these transactions, and say, you know what, you can't do that.
But doesn't that infringe on my rights to tell me what I can do with my own money?
No. So the banks are always have a right to refuse service, right? For a particular reason, that is that at the end of the day, you can always go away from the banks. Like the interesting thing is banks do carry an essential public function, and if you restrict an essential public function in a manner that affects public interest, that will result in a public interest litigation. Okay. So now the interesting question is, I think there will be a case that will be filed soon in relation to this. Does restricting access to certain transactions by these banking institutions, number one, is against public interest, and number two, is this activity a public function? The latter, I think, is the former. It is a matter of debate.
Okay. So all right. So then let's say so we've got that. We've got the Indian situation where it's a little confused right now, and maybe we're going to see someone challenge it.
And also talking about hodling, right? People are hodling these coins. What do they do, right? I would just say hold on to them, because RBI is not stopping you to hold. And if you're currently looking at the current market state, it's not a right time to sell either. Right?
Yeah, it's probably better to buy right now than to sell. But anyway, but I'm determined. I'm freaked out by the RBI coming out with the circular, so I want to get out as fast as possible. I can't do it in India anymore because these guys have put this ban. So obviously it's not coming into effect yet. It's probably going to come into effect in the next few days. But let's say the next few days I'm asleep. I only find out about it once the ban is done. Can I go and start an account somewhere else on the planet, Singapore or Switzerland or America, and cash out that way and then just send it back through a normal bank transaction?
See, at the end of the day, if you go outside with that cryptocurrency and you are actually cashing it out and liquidating it, even if it's a place which is very, forthcoming to crypto, they would take certain disclosures from you that this is, and they'll keep it to the records. Singapore has been, and Switzerland specifically, has been not a very cooperative government when it comes to certain disclosures the Indian government has wanted. But specifically when you want to get out and you want to put money, you're going outside and liquidating it, you do need to understand, one way or the other, if you have bought it from an Indian exchange, the government will find out you did.
No, but I'm not trying to hide it. I'm just trying to get my money back.
Yeah.
So it's possible?
So then the government will say you bought it in India. Where did it go?
You say, listen, I've got a trail of money. I bought it here. I held it for
so you pay tax
2 months. Yeah, you pay tax on it through, and I'm guessing you pay a double tax. You have to pay for the commission rates of the banks switching foreign currencies.
As well as probably both the countries will take tax. I don't know. That's a matter of double taxation. That will be coming under ETA because that's a very specific instance. But yeah, Indian government will probably go like, you're not using any of the channels that are in India, but you have these coins, and you say, I don't have these coins, then you liquidated it, give me some taxes. That's probably what's going to happen.
Okay, so the Indian government right now has played it very smart, where, like you were saying, they didn't go right after the private citizens' rights. They've put it on the private banks, while also saying if you liquidate through some other manner that we haven't thought of, you got to pay us tax. So they've got best of both worlds right
Exactly. So in fact, very honestly, cryptocurrency as a system has evolved not as a very mainstream, right? It became mainstream when suddenly the prices skyrocketed and speculative market forces got into the game.
When the bigger guys got into the game.
But fundamentally, it has always been an undercurrent movement, right? Always been against the existing system of centralized financial transactions where the big players are manipulating and affecting the people who have little, right? So if you look at that way, this is something, these kind of storms are not new to the crypto space.
But this is relatively this is.
To be very honest, right? So you can go to there are certain websites in India, right? And which you can go and you can have a peer-to-peer transaction. Let's say you have a couple of bitcoins and I want to buy one bitcoin and you sell one bitcoin to me and I just give you money.
There's no fiat currency involved.
Even if it's fiat currency involved, right? Okay. So the thing is, banks are not allowing you to actually do any specific transactions when it comes to there's this crypto asset and you cannot directly engage in it, but it is a peer-to-peer ecosystem, right? So what if I have a peer-to-peer transaction with you? Then that is a one place which RBI has not yet thought of, because I think predominantly the lack of awareness. There are certain portals that are there in the country right now where you can do peer-to-peer transactions and which may or may not be about crypto. Right, so that's something which I think, just like in China, it happened in India as well.
Alright, so overall, we've gone through a lot of stuff right now, and this is one of the weirder things about this entire thing is that the government is still very bullish on blockchain and not crypto, which you can argue is hard to do both at the same time.
It's like this, they are all for private blockchain, yet they want to implement it in a public way. And
which doesn't necessarily make sense.
So essentially why public blockchain has cryptocurrencies, because cryptocurrency is not money, it's not virtual currency. If you really go down that road, we can actually we can find holes, but it's not going to work. That it's banning is virtual currencies, and cryptocurrency is not a currency, it's a number on the blockchain. But let's not
that gets to code and all that. That's a different thing.
They don't know anything.
So that's what I'm trying to bring out here, is that they've banned something without fully understanding it. Now, this is a final question. I think we've talked about it for a while, and I think it's to anyone who's listening intently, they probably understand what's going on now. But final question: what do you think is going to happen a year, 2 years, 5 years down the line? You think it's still going to be banned, or is this just a temporary thing until they figure out what they're doing?
Similarly, as I remember the two things. So you can go two different ways, right? Depending on how the international markets adapt to crypto world, and India is always follows, so they're watching it closely. If the international market rejects cryptocurrency as an initiative, as a system, it just washes away it was one of those things that happened that came and went and just a ripple on a fabric of time no one really cares about. In that instance, it will probably still be an undercurrent movement of people who want to do transactions.
But then they move back to what they were 5 years ago, right? Working on the dark web, doing other kind of stuff.
Yeah, like mainstream people are also there, right? So if you look at the betting industry, the online betting industry in India, right, is highly regulated, and you're not supposed to do it if you don't have there's only certain states who are allowing, like Nagaland and Sikkim. There's this whole different place, right? But if you look at a website like indiabet.com, right? So they are based out of the UK, and there are people from India who are using that to do something, right? So
you don't have to be based in India.
Yeah, so they won't be based in India, and there'll be Indian citizens who will be transacting there elsewhere, in certain very jurisdiction easy countries. That's probably what's going to happen if the Indian government on the long run actually does away with actually supporting this movement.
So you just see a lot of these exchanges moving out of the country if they
just like
force
Binance.
it.
But the thing is, the other thing that can happen also is if the Indian government accepts that this is the future, they're going to license the process, and only probably people who are designated, people who have the wherewithal and the financial capital to actually run something like this. With existing capital, people within the ecosystem, people from the industry, people who already have been in the game, who are in talks with people who are comfortable. This is not going to be a counterculture mainstream thing. So basically, fundamentally, the traditional financial people will come into this game and they'll run it.
Okay, so let's assume that 6 months, 1 year down the line, the government figures out some regulations, puts licenses in place, all that. We move forward, just like the P2P lending. What happens for those 1 year? So people like yourself who are in the industry, who are working, you may not be working directly with an exchange, but you're working to build something in the cryptocurrency space. And we're talking about a lot of exchanges who've got a lot of funding in the last year or so. These guys have got literally in the millions of dollars when you put it all together. So this is a lot of money in there. What happens to them for the next year? Are this going to tank? Is the Indian ecosystem going to be a year behind the rest of the world? What happens now?
That's an interesting question, right? So when it comes to getting more and more people on the space will be a problem, definitely, because there's an explicit statement from the RBI to banks are not supporting it, and a traditional person who is the target market, they would not be comfortable working with something that doesn't involve a banking transaction from India. There has to be a reworking of their valuations, reworking of their business strategy, but predominantly what they will probably do is move out of the country and go to the spaces currently which are supporting the exchanges.
So let's say these guys all move out to Singapore or whatever, much like
Seychelles,
let's say Seychelles or Malta, like Binance, wherever they're going. It's an online business at the end of the day. They don't need to physically be here. So what does that do does that make no difference in the Indian crypto community? Does it just
does
go
a
on?
huge difference, right?
What's the difference? Like, how does
the difference is like if all the entire that's a very small community. If they keep doing international transactions on an ongoing basis, actually, think about it. Like, it just becomes just another Bittrex, right? So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's just another exchange out of India that is catering to Indians. Yeah. So does that affect us a little? I mean, I'm guessing the government loses tax revenue.
It does. It does affect it in a way, because you and I maybe we will get into the game because we know the way with it, but certain people think of this as not a very kosher place to be.
Okay, so it affects the culture around it.
Yes.
Like people
very honestly, I can work on a Japanese exchange, US exchange, wherever, right? But at the end of the day, that is happening. This is like it is a repetitive conversation talk about enforceability of laws on international exchange. But Indian community, through this entire website, now that we have specifically something written from the government that just tells you not to do something, will have an impact, definitely. Yeah. The valuations will change. The investors will be scared.
And it's also enforcing a brain drain of sorts, where if you force everyone to leave the country and they're working on cutting edge technology, then why would you want people like that leaving your country? Wouldn't you want those companies and those individuals to stay within your country?
Oh, but you only want to do it for like blockchain and not cryptocurrency.
That's right. You want everyone to back off from what they want and on what you want.
No, you want everyone to do something and not do something at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. The funny thing is, if you talk to almost any major technological blockchain guy in India, and we've had a lot of them on the show, and almost every single one of them will say you can't have blockchain without cryptocurrency.
Cryptocurrency is not currency. It's the cryptography.
It's
not the currency like hey, I don't want to give you some 100 rupees. Can you give me some bitcoins?
Exactly.
That's not what it is.
It's a verification method.
Yeah. So
I mean, you get a lot of these smaller guys, or relatively smaller guys like Litecoin and all the other altcoins that want to be a currency. But there's also a significant amount of coins that are just verification modules. Stuff like Ethereum, Ether, Ripple, whatever it is.
Yeah.
They're just verification code. That's all it is.
Yes.
It's not actual money. So it's strange.
It's not like hey, you have some Ethereum money.
Yeah.
It's not like
you're not gonna go out and buy it.
There's not like this guy standing on a shady street looking at people holding Ethereum in his wallet and he like
some Ethereum.
That's what happens.
Yeah. Well, this has been an interesting conversation with you. I think we've cleared up a bit of the myth about it, and we're going to see what the Indian government does over the next few months, if they're going to stick to their guns or they're going to do more of a P2P lending situation. Anyway, this is a crypto show, and this is Arko Ganguli of CoinShala. We'll see you next time.